So with all the discussions going around right now for the Switch 2, with a lot of it being the pricing of the system, some of the different games, and even some of the features of the device, there was one thing that I really wanted to hone in on here because I think it is a big dividing factor between the current Switch and the Switch 2, and I think it's actually a really cool thing to see finally get announced by Nintendo, as it's been rumored for what feels like years now. GameCube is making its way to the Switch 2. And I think when a lot of people saw this as we were watching on live stream, they knew. I'm excited for this, even though, again, we've heard about it for a while. So there was some impact for the announcement that was kind of removed. But after I looked around and saw other people's reactions, I really wasn't alone here. This is a really cool thing to see added. And, well, based on the market for the GameCube, this could be massive for people who never got to experience this system back in the early 2000s. And I wanted to go over some of that here today, as well as how big this application could actually get for Nintendo and some of the players. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. So first of all, GameCube will be heading into Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack on June 5th, so the launch day of the Switch 2. At the time of this recording for the video, there's been no announcement that subscription service is going up in price. However, the way that Nintendo has been moving recently with, just how expensive not only the overall system, the games, everything is right now coming off of the current Switch, and the fact they're also putting like the Switch 2 enhancement patch things in there, it kind of feels like they're building that subscription up a bit more to where, yes, they do raise the price. So I will tell you right here, right now, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe even a little after launch, the price goes up, or even before launch, it's just an announcement they push in the press release. But again, at the time of this recording, it's $50 per year for the NSO, Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, which at this time does include a lot of games. And yes, they're all emulated, and sure, I get it, people go around just creating the collection themselves for their PC and stuff, sure. But there is a convenience factor here, and the fact that the Switch is heavily geared towards the mainstream audience who, I guess I do need to explain it. A vast majority of people don't really want to deal with emulation, especially as you get into the PS2, Xbox, GameCube generation, okay? So, great example. There's a situation with the Steam Deck where I think if you look around online, it feels like everyone has the thing. So a lot of people assumed that the sales were incredible for the device, and then come to find out, analysts are like, oh yeah, it's like a little over 3 million or something. And people were shocked by that number. Like, oh, well, I thought everyone had this. Like, the timeline's filled with people who have a Steam Deck. And I think a lot of people realized, you know what, maybe sometimes the internet that's very plugged into a lot of this stuff doesn't actually represent as big of a market as we thought. And yeah, a lot of these games and consoles and all this stuff's kind of held up by the mainstream for the most part. And like, we'll be there as early adopters or really plugged in and doing things like emulation, sure. But there is a large number of people who are not going to go into the settings and change things to Vulkan or figure out any of the resolution upscaling and stuff with the GameCube to make sure the frame rate is just right and the compatibility is correct. This actually works really well for many of those people to just fire up the application and be greeted with GameCube games. Now, at this time, from what I've seen, the file size for the app with the first 3 games comes in at 3.5 gigabytes, which is going to be very important as it's going to be growing over time. So let's say we have 10 games, at that point, you're probably looking at like 12 to 13 gigabytes. And this could end up ballooning into 20 or 30 gigabytes for the application. I'm curious if Nintendo will allow people to pick and choose which games come installed on the application. Might not be a bad idea to allow that, because we will maybe get into the idea of dual mini DVD discs or games, and that could end up even adding more so onto that. But at least for now, we have 3 games that'll launch into the service on June 5th. Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker, F-Zero GX, and Soul Calibur 2. Looking at these games online, the cheapest one is Soul Calibur 2, but Wind Waker and F-Zero GX, even just finding them loose is like $50 to $70. And if you want to complete in the box with manual, good luck, it's going to cost quite a bit. That, to me, is the biggest thing that plays into all of this, which we'll get to here in a moment, comes down to how unapproachable the GameCube market has become. And one of the reasons that I've kind of fallen back a bit from really talking about collecting these games and stuff, because the comments would be, hey, that's really cool. I don't think I'm really going to get into collecting GameCube games because like the market is just ridiculous. But you know, it's kind of neat to see this stuff, and it's like, man, there's really no like growth here technically for the interest of GameCube, which is funny because back in the day, I saw someone post on X or whatever that, oh, look, it was, you know, $200 for the GameCube and this game and that game, or at one point it was $100 for the GameCube, right? There was like a platinum bundle, a couple of games, something to it, and I was like, yes, it was awesome, and yet I was still basically Will Smith at the end of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air looking around in the empty living room because just no one really buying the GameCube. That's just how it was. And now a lot of people seem to want to buy the GameCube. And so the pricing, of course, has gone up. Now, the games in general for this, people have been playing them at these hands-on events. And I've been hearing some stuff from it. And it seems like maybe it's a 2x resolution bump, which would put it right at 960p. Again, not confirmed. We'll see when it comes out, and I'm sure Digital Foundry will be taking a look at it. MVG will probably also be looking into it. But that would actually make sense to go up like a 2x resolution bump from 480p to 960p, and then they can, of course, scale it and stuff to fit for a larger display and stuff. But usually when you run, say, a GameCube emulator, Dolphin, for some of these, I don't want to say lower-end devices, but like if you have an APU or something and you're dealing with just the memory bandwidth for just RAM, you would probably end up right around there, like a 2x, and still be able to shoot for maybe 60 frames per second in these games. And GameCube games clean up very nicely on emulation, so this should look pretty good. You're still dealing with GameCube games in general, and unless you do some crazy legwork with textures and stuff that you can do with emulation, it's still going to look like a game from like 2002 or 2003, something like that, you know? So there's only so much you can do, basically. Now, the good news is, it seems that with NSO on the Switch 2, if the game has a widescreen option in like the settings menu, you can enable that and it will work. So they showed it off in the Treehouse of Soul Calibur 2, which is a very, very good-looking game, and one that I think, okay, maybe F-Zero just, it should look very, very good, and probably even show off their emulator. I assume Nerd making it, but it should be their emulator that will, I think, get a good showing here with Soul Calibur 2. Now, out of the three games, I do think F-Zero GX will probably look the most impressive. It's very fast, and you'll notice if the frame rate dips when you're playing. It's very sensitive to it with the high-speed racing aspect. But the game itself looks awesome in motion. So that with the online multiplayer, that could be a ton of fun, right? So that's one of the games that really is pulling me in, and that is one that is fairly expensive online to pick up. And it's one that people usually will, I don't say benchmark their emulation devices, but that seems to be the one that a lot of people go to immediately in different videos when they're checking out hardware with GameCube emulation. So yeah, fire that one up and you'll see what I'm talking about. It is chaos. It's so fun, though. So we also have 7 more games that'll be following up the initial launch on June 5th. That would be Mario Sunshine, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, Super Mario Strikers, Chibi Robo, Plug Into Adventure, Luigi's Mansion, and Pokemon Colosseum. Now, I have a lot of these games, and these games in particular, like, they showed the 7, and I was looking at those like, whoa, those are some high dollar titles. Like, for example, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. That is so high dollar that I actually have it in one of these acrylic cases. The point is, these games have gotten to this level to where you kind of display them more than people would play that, just because they are that collector's item territory now, and it's a shame. I mean, I can still play this, obviously, and it makes more sense, to be honest, to rip the disc, back it up, which I can, using like Peekaboot and stuff on the GameCube, and just play it off of an SD card to avoid even using it, which is hilarious because I don't think I'm never going to sell these, I feel like, and they'll mostly just likely succumb to disc rot before anything else. So, hey, when I'm like 80, I'll look at it and go, that was certainly a waste. But at least for now, I have them here. But the point is, this collection is like incredibly expensive, valuable even on the open market. And of course, I know these are ROMs or ISOs or whatever that they're loading up, but it would be technically from official means to play these. So you're not going out and downloading them on certain websites, which that seems to be a sticking point for a lot of people as well when it comes to emulation. Again, more mainstream people aren't as plugged in and in the know as they're trying to just figure out where these games are, and then they end up with viruses or other unsavory files on their computer. And so I get all of that, but looking at this, I mean, Mario Sunshine, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, Pokemon XD is incredible. So it's like Fire Emblem and Pokemon XD are really expensive titles, but I feel like people don't realize Chibi Robo is actually one of the holy grails of GameCube collecting right now. It's insane how you wouldn't expect it, and I feel like 6 or 7 years ago it was nowhere near the price it is now, but it has just climbed year over year. So they already showed Mario Strikers in the in the treehouse. It was on the dashboard already for some reason, which, by the way, looks awesome. They have, of course, the cover art there, as you would expect. Seeing the games here that are coming, it does feel like Nintendo is looking around even at some of the more expensive titles to bring over. And you know what? That's exciting to me, because there are a lot of games right now that if you're trying to get them through official means it's just not worth it. It's just completely unattainable. Even myself, there are a few games that I'm looking at like, oh gosh, do I really want to move that kind of money for a game that might not even be that good? So with that in mind, I made a list of games that I would like to see come to the service. I will admit, probably more than half of these games will not come. But you know what? It'd be cool if I just got randomly surprised during a direct at some point. I will say the number of games they shown, 7 or so, I assume that's the first 7 or 8 months. Like every month we should get one of these games maybe. And they, I guess at this point, have shown us up to the end of 2025, maybe into January 2026. So with that in mind, let's go down the list here of games that I've picked out. Obviously, the first one, Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. That seems obvious. I mean, we're talking about the Wind Waker Twilight Princess bundle. Well, here's Wind Waker, so I guess, hey, bring in Twilight Princess at this point. I picked out Mario Kart Double Dash because we have Mario Kart for all the other systems on NSO, so why not Double Dash? And the interesting thing in particular about Double Dash is it has broadband functionality, and you can play online, but there was LAN connections. There's LAN feature, which, while they wouldn't maybe tap the online functionality, I wonder if they could use that LAN function on NSO to where you could have, and I'm not kidding, 16 players. The way it would work, though, is you were able to hook up 8 different GameCubes, and because with Double Dash, you can have 2 people, obviously, on one cart, with one person throwing the items, one driving, you were able to do 16 players. So, I kind of wonder if maybe they could make that work. That would be ridiculous. If they're like, yo, Mario Kart Double Dash, and you can do up to 16 players. That would be crazy. It'd be awesome, though. There's also Mario Party 4, 5, 6, and 7. All of those are incredibly expensive, so that would be really cool to see Mario Party show up here. And think about it this way. You go Mario Party 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all in NSO. Star Fox Adventures and Assault, pick one. I would prefer Star Fox Adventures, although I know people like the traditional Star Fox. It's more like Assault. Adventure's so weird that a lot of people are probably tuning into GameCube for the first time, so why not show them an unexpected kind of Star Fox game that was originally, a Dinosaur Planet or whatever? Why not? Here's Star Fox Adventures. Animal Crossing, of course. Sure, throw that in there. Although, that had NES games in it. I'm wondering if they can make that work. I don't really know how that would go down. Maybe they don't care and they're like, yeah, whatever. You unlock NES games if you want to play it enough. Metroid Prime 2. We'll see however they are able to get Metroid Prime 3 over to... I still think it makes sense for Metroid Prime 2 and 3 to just kind of be its own thing ahead of 4, but we'll see how they want to navigate that. Resident Evil 2 and 3, I think it'd be cool if Capcom showed up with those. They have played ball somewhat with PlayStation with the premium stuff because they have Resident Evil in there, but this would be the 2 and 3 or the GameCube versions, and I'm curious. Cubivore. This is the game that I've thought about buying forever, but it's so expensive, it's hard to justify, and it's part of the collection. So you buy it, and then you kind of put it on the shelf, and you go, I did it, and that's it. I've heard it's not a great game. So I would probably just try it here and be like, okay, there you go. Eternal Darkness, that would be interesting to see. And they have the mature rated application now for it, so they can dive into some of these M-rated, GameCube games like the Resident Evils that are previously mentioned. Beautiful Joe, Gotcha Force, Skies of Arcadia, Rogue Squadron 2, those are all, I think, pretty straightforward. Tales of Symphonia, interestingly enough, that could be the 60 FPS version that we don't have right now. It would, I think, give a huge benefit to the GameCube NSO version over any other, even over just like the regular Switch version or the PlayStation version. It's like, no, I want to play the GameCube NSO one because it actually has 60 FPS. Again, as weird as that seems. The Prince of Persia games were really cool this generation. I'm curious if Ubisoft would be okay with that since they are remaking Sands of Time right now. But maybe they're thinking, hey, you know what? The Sands of Time remake is just better than these older versions. We'll see, but maybe they'd allow it that way. Same with Splinter Cell. Like, there are Splinter Cell games there that they could put on NSO, and it just comes down to Nintendo and Ubisoft making a deal. But the one that I think would be wild to see is Spider-Man 2 from the GameCube. And I'm wondering if Marvel would be able to make this work with them, if they'd be able to, if they'd care to. That would be really cool if Nintendo was like, yo, we got Spider-Man 2 and it's going on NSO through the GameCube. But I think this is really cool, and I hope it ends up turning into something that's very, very exciting. And if they get to a position where there's like 20 GameCube games that you just open up the app and they're all there, that'll be massive for people who maybe just pick up the Switch 2 2 years into its life or something. I think it would at that point, with the huge library of titles dating back to like the original Nintendo. It'd be very hard to fight back against the value of NSO. And again, that's what makes me wonder about Nintendo's interest in raising the price for it. At $50 a year, I think it'd be a very easy recommendation then with a lot of these games. And I think one of the coolest things about this is it would open up the GameCube generation to many more people. Again, I know emulation is possible, but as I've mentioned, it's smaller audience than you'd think, okay? And I feel like there'd be a lot of the younger generation coming up that would just discover the GameCube for the first time, and it would be really cool to see that. And hey, there's even a GameCube controller that you can buy, and I'll be buying at least one of them to check out, open up the whole thing, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So while there has been a lot of anger and frustration at Nintendo and the Switch 2 recently, I wanted to contrast that a bit here today and talk about something that I'm very happy and excited to see Nintendo actually do here, and that being recognizing the GameCube and maybe open up to a huge, like a future of GameCube titles going into this service, and that would be a lot of fun. It'd almost be like a big release for them every month if they are dropping these games in every 4 or 5 weeks, especially since this would be the generation, the GameCube, PS2, Xbox generation, from first party Nintendo and also third parties, where we started to get closer and closer to like the bigger narrative-driven experiences, just almost, I guess, the AAA kind of games, sort of. They're much closer to games now, we'll say, than PS1, N64, early 3D days. Not that there weren't great games then. You kind of get what I'm saying, though, with some of these other titles here. But let me know what you guys think about this down below. If you were someone who was very excited to see GameCube pop up with NSO when they dropped the purple cube down and it started to do the opening animation, if you were someone who kind of freaked out seeing that in the direct end, you know what? Let me know which games you would like to see come to the service at some point during the Switch 2's life. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.